My name is Patrick Dunn. I am the executive director of the New Haven Pride Center. I'm also a local drag entertainer, and I'm here to talk about Pride Month and what it means and why we have it.
So why do we have
Why do we have it? Well, I think there's a lot of different answers to that question.
it?
I think the kind of community generally accepted answer is that it's an opportunity for us as a community to celebrate ourselves, to honor each other, to be visible. I always like to think that Pride is less for the community and the people who are coming out to celebrate it, and it's more for the people who are not ready to come out of the closet, and it offers them this like beacon of hope, this beacon of light, that someday when they're ready and they're in a place in their lives where they can actually live out and proud, that they can join the community. But until then, they can see the community and they can have the feeling of warmth and love, even if they're across the street while it's happening.
Now, why the Pride Center? I mean, what do you guys do for everyone?
So the Pride Center, so we were founded like kind of extent of Pride. We were originally founded as the Gay and Lesbian Community Center, and changed our name to the Pride Center probably a decade and a half ago, to have a much more inclusive name that wasn't just identifying just gay and lesbian, because many things, particularly in the late 80s, early 90s, was being called gay and lesbian.
Right.
And so wanting to be kind of more inclusive and have better language, we changed our name to the Pride Center. But what does the Pride Center do? The Pride Center does a lot of different things, but everything we do falls very nicely into one or more of our 5 buckets of focus. So that's case management and support services. So basically helping people get connected to resources, providing resources to people and providing space for people. Creating shared experiences, which is a lot of what of our social programming are, things like our trans hiking or our bisocial group and things like that. Board and game night. Then we do youth empowerment and educational programs. That, kind of the centerpiece of that is the Black and Brown's Queer Camp that we do in partnership with Citywide Youth that kicked off today.
What is that? That's something I've never heard of, the Black and Brown Camp. What is that?
It's a summer camp. It's a week-long summer intensive for LGBTQ youth who identify as Black or Brown. And they come and have 7 days of intense conversations. They talk about LGBTQ history from a Black and Brown perspective. They learn about community organizing. What does it look like to have peer support for each other? How do we as a community come together and support youth and each other? And it's done with Citywide Youth. Janice and Allah are the 2 main folks that kind of organize and keep it going. Juan Carlos Soto, who's our director of case management, was one of the founding members of the coalition that built it. It's in its 4th year this year, so it's super successful. We always have anywhere between 20 and 30 young people from kind of all over Greater New Haven participating. And it's incredible. It's, we accept up to as low as 14 age-wise and go all the way to 25 at the high end. This year, I think most of our young people are 18 to 22, but it shifts every year.
Yeah, I'm sure. So now, are you part of the Legend drag show this Sunday?
I am the.
Oh, you are. So I'll get a chance to see you.
I'm the curator, the co-director, and the star.
Oh, now what is your drag name?
My drag name is Kiki Lucia.
Oh, Kiki. Okay, I did put the 2 together. I didn't put your.
A lot of people don't actually. It's really fun when people find out that I'm the same person.
Yes, because I've actually we've actually communicated on Facebook last year when I was trying to get Robin Banks on when I got Robin Banks on the phone. But I'm looking at that picture of Kiki, and it doesn't look anything like Patrick.
The power of makeup.
The power of makeup. But everyone is really excited about the Legends drag show.
Oh my God, it's it's gonna make people cry. It's gonna make people feel empowered. It's gonna make people walk away from that green wanting to take on the world. There's gonna be some really beautiful moments. There's gonna be some really, really like heartthrob moments. There's going to be moments that feel empowering. I actually on Monday night I sat down and I listened to all the show in kind of one straight line without pausing or going out of order or anything. And so I did the whole thing in one go, and I like was almost in tears by the end, just because it has this beautiful evolution to it. So the first kind of hour and 20 minutes of the show is all highlighting local performers, all of whom are kind of from throughout the state. We have performers from Fairfield County, like Bridgeport. We have performers from up in Hartford. And we're telling the story of the community through the art of drag. So we start with pre-Stonewall Campton cafeteria riots,
right?
And we go all the way through modern day and have this incredible experience of just, the art of drag in so many different forms, and these incredible, like, important moments in LGBTQ history, from Stonewall riots to the first Pride events to, everything. It's pretty amazing.
Why do you think? Well, right now, drag is popular. People just go crazy for drag queens.
Yes,
but
they do.
I remember when I was 13 and my mother took me to the Apollo Theater for the big drag queen ball. Like once a year, there was a drag queen ball and so forth. That was a long time ago, man. You can look at me. There's gray on his hair.
But there's some gray left in what I have left.
But why do you think it has taken so long for people? And I guess, truthfully, RuPaul has a lot to do with the popularity right now. But why do you think it took so long?
Well, I think it's a combination of a few things. So I think drag has been an integral part of our community since before Stonewall, right? Like, I don't know if you know the Campton cafeteria story, but so the Campton cafeteria was one of the cafeterias in San Francisco that a lot of the LGBTQ plus community used to go and hang out, particularly drag performers, trans folks, sex workers. A lot of them would hang out there. And one morning, it was like early morning, a cop came in and was harassing people. And one of the drag queens picked up her coffee and just threw it in his face, and it started a riot.
Right.
And so there was many moments like that where drag has been vital kind of all along the way. I think, you look at something like the HIV and AIDS or early years, particularly, before the federal government acknowledged that there was a problem. Drag queens were the people raising money to pay for people's funerals. So that drag has been an integral part of the community forever. I think when we talk about kind of the exposure to the broader kind of straight world and becoming, kind of hot commodity, so to speak, I think it's balanced. I think there is this group of people that really like uplift drag artists in positive, beautiful ways.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I do a lot of work with Long Wharf theater, where it's always done in this like elevating me as an artist. It's not about bringing me on stage to be a commodity.
I see.
But then there are a lot of the people that use this as a commodity, because it's like the new freak show, right? It's like it's the new way of like shock value for the straight white cis people that are like, oh, I got a little bit of shock,
But it's I have to say, like I said, I'm coming Sunday, and I'm coming with a good friend of mine and her husband and her 10-year-old boy. And there are a lot of people bringing their kids and so forth, and all the drag shows and so forth that we're used to seeing in New Haven. You see families there. It's not, just adults. They're turning their kids onto it. And so they're very, very, how should I say, very comfortable with it. And that hasn't always been the case. So how has Pride changed since it became such a big month?
Well, it's interesting. I think in Connecticut, we have a really interesting thing happening. So in Connecticut, we celebrate Pride. So Pride season, as we call it, usually kicks off with Bethel Pride. Bethel is usually our first Pride event, and it's usually the first weekend in May. And then it goes all the way until the end of September. And usually Pride New Haven is the last event. We're usually the third week of September.
Okay.
Although last year, actually, Madison ended up doing a Pride event that was the week after us. But typically, New Haven is the last and Bethel is the first. And so in Connecticut, we really have Pride from kind of like May 3rd, 4th, 5th, something like that, all the way until September 20th, 25th, you know. So we like to celebrate Pride here in Connecticut. You know, and I think it's interesting. I think there's two kinds of prides the way I see it. There's the prides that are kind of and by the community. They vary in size and kind of what they do. I like to think that that Pride New Haven is in that category. I think, you know, prides like Bethel is a very good example of those kind of communities. Like Bethel Pride was founded because a bunch of high school students said, oh, we really want we want something LGBTQ in our city because we feel like New Haven's so far away. And so they created this really beautiful little community event that's actually not so little. I mean, I shouldn't say it's little because it was actually a pretty well attended community event, but it's like a great gathering of people. And then there's some prides that have become very, very economic impact driven by things like chambers of commerces and, you know, these like cities that want to take advantage of the impact that comes with a Pride event to the city. And those kind of Pride events, I don't particularly care for. I find them to be pandering. I find them to be really all about making money for the city and not necessarily recognizing the community or supporting the community anyway. Right. They oftentimes tend to be really big wastes of money where they spend large sums of money on things like road closures and then pay artists like $10 or nothing. And so I think for me, I don't go to the like really big prides. Like I've only been to one really big pride once. I was to San Francisco Pride once, but those are just too overwhelming for me. That's like too many people. But I like the events that feel very community, that I see a lot of people that I know, see a lot of people I don't know. To me, that's the kind of Pride events that I really enjoy. And what I think is closer to the true message of what Pride means to me. Right. You know, is there an advantage of having something like in New York that's super flashing in your face? You can't ignore it no matter where you are in the city. I think there probably is value to that. But for me, my kind of favorite events are the smaller ones. And there's definitely been this like new movement also within the Pride culture of like stepping away from corporate Pride and being more, thinking of it more like a riot or a protest and that being closer to the true relationship people have to Pride. So I kind of go back and forth. I think there's value in the event, like an event like what we create where we have a big stage and, you know, in one day we employ over 100 artists and we're paying them all. And it, like, to me, I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad for the community. I think that's good for the community, right? We're putting money in the hands of artists, right. LGBTQ artists. And
particularly since so many have been struggling over the past 14 months with the pandemic. So it's really good to know that, because I didn't know that. So I'm really happy to know that these artists who will be performing are getting paid. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, there's been a really good movement in Connecticut to pay artists for prides. There was a long period of time where Pride New Haven was one of the only prides that paid people. And I think as more and more cities are building these events and more, particularly the drag artists are like, no, I'm not coming to your event and performing for free. They're having to really take a look at like, yeah, and understand that there's value in us being there. And there's also a real thing about like, if you're spending $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 on your venue and your stage, like take some of that money and actually invest in the community, because right now all your Pride is doing is giving money to more straight companies.
Yeah, and that kind of belays the message of Pride. Exactly. But I want to go back to the young people that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Is coming out still as difficult as it was, say, 25 years ago, 50 years ago? I mean, are young people finding it very hard to, you know, tell their parents that they're gay, lesbian, or whatever the case may be?
I'm going to say yes. And the reason I'm going to say yes, I think it's different. It's very different. I mean, it's different from when I came out to when young, young people are coming out now, or not so young people, right? Because some people still come out in their
Right.
80s. And, I mean, we had a call less than 2 years ago from like a 90-year-old trans person that came out of the closet after everyone in her family had died and wanted to live like the last few years of her life as
Wow.
herself, right?
Wow.
And so I think it is just as difficult. And the reason why I say that is I think that until there is a true shift in culture, a real shift in culture and how we talk about relationships and love and present that to young people, it will always be one of the scariest things any LGBT person does is coming out the first time. Because so what I always say, what is the true share? Every minority community has shared experiences, right? There's certain things that everybody in that community can relate to and understand, and thus that helps create that unique identity. For LGBTQ people, the one shared experience we all have, no matter what our racial demographics or socioeconomic backgrounds, where we come from, what our gender identity is, like no matter what, the one shared experience we all have is fear that our parents won't love us anymore. And until we have to literally dismantle everything about how we talk about love and relationships and all that to be able to get rid of that, until we live in a society where not every single film love story is about a man and a woman, where not every way we teach history is about like the white men that went over here and did that and that. Like until we can actually break down all of those systems, coming out will always be difficult. Are there more resources now? Are things more accessible now? Yes. Is the experience of coming out maybe different than it was now? Yes. But we still live in a state in Connecticut where at any given time, 20 to 40% of people under the age of 25 who are homeless are LGBTQ. That's an indicator of how hard it still is to come out, when parents are still willing to throw their children away.
What is that percentage again?
So at any given time in Connecticut, the youth homelessness, which is 25 and under, who are homeless, 20 to 40% of them identify as LGBTQ+. And that's higher than the national average, because the national average is, I think it's like 18%. So in Connecticut, we are higher than the national average on the average day, right? And it's really hard to count young people being homeless because youth experience homelessness very differently than adults. And so it's a harder thing to calculate, which is why you see such a big range. But yeah, at any given point in the state of Connecticut, 20 to 40% of young people who are homeless are LGBTQ+. And in most cases, they are homeless because of either one of two things. Their parents have told them to get out, or because they were a part of the Connecticut foster care system and turned 18.
Now, that's actually something I'm going to be doing maybe a month from now. I was looking at foster kids, because I am a little concerned about these kids just aging out of the system, and there's nothing for them.
And I mean, so one of the things that I do, one of the boards I sit on is the advisory board for Y2Y New Haven, which is a new youth homeless shelter that's being developed here in New Haven. It will open, I think, maybe later this year. I know that it's because of COVID, the date has gotten moved around a few times. So I'll be honest, I don't remember when, which is really bad. I'm a terrible board member right now. But Y2Y New Haven, I was sitting in a meeting with them the other day, and I was like, my big concern is because queer people are less likely to get adopted. So if they're out, right, they're less likely to be able to find a home. And so they're more likely to still be in foster care when they turn 18. So, and with COVID, adoption rates plummeted. And so what happens, like, are we in a year or 2 years going to see this influx of a massive chunk of people turning 18 and becoming homeless? And are they going to be disproportionately LGBTQ+ and people of color? Because again, also Black and Latinx folks are less likely to be adopted in adoption circles. Like, to me, that's really scary to me. That's something I'm really scared about. Like, what is New Haven which tends to be the place where a lot of young people who become homeless come because we have more services here. What does New Haven, what does Connecticut look like in 2 years when, you know, kids that maybe were 14 at the start of the pandemic, which never then got placed because the pandemic, nothing was happening, and now suddenly turn 18 and now they have nowhere to go. Like that's, I think, going to be one of the real great travesties of COVID, and one of the long-term side effects that we're not necessarily preparing for right now. And I don't necessarily see people preparing for it right now.
Now, like I was getting ready to ask you, are people preparing for it? So because this takes money. This takes money. These kids need shelter, and you know they need support services. So I understand what you mean when you say that this is going to be a big problem. So how do we tackle it?
We gotta, you know, I say this all the time. This is one of the reasons why I am a big supporter of Y2Y and joined their advisory board, is that we need more space for them. So New Haven has a huge problem, and it's not just New Haven. I mean, I'm speaking from a New Haven perspective right now, but really this is a problem across the state. There aren't enough beds. There are not enough beds for these young people to be in. And I mean, New Haven has something like 12 beds. That's all that they have. And there's only, it's something like only 12 beds are dedicated to young people, meaning under the age of 25. And they're all through Youth Continuum. And Youth Continuum is trying to expand that, but like, it's crazy to me that we can have hundreds of young people that are homeless and have 12 beds for them to sleep.
Yes, I know it doesn't make sense. In fact, a lot of, as you well are aware, there's a lot of things that happen that just don't make sense. And the idea that we have kids who are homeless, you know, is just, it's hard to even wrap your head around.
Children, literally children under the age of 18,
right? I know.
Engaging in sex work in New Haven because it's the only way they can survive. And then, you know, because they're homeless or couch surfing or whatever they're doing to survive, like, and I don't blame them. It's not them. It's the systems that are failing them. And it's you know, we have incredible nonprofits. We do have, like, you know, Youth Continuum is a great example. The Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen is another great example that do everything in their power to try to fix these systems. And we have, you know, I'm a member of the kind of, I forget what the acronym for us is, but it's a regional council basically looking at systems and trying to address massive holes that exist. And I'm a member of that. And you know, we have these conversations all the time. It's like the state needs to really think through how they take a look at how the money is being spent on homeless services and opportunities for people who are at risk of homelessness, experiencing homelessness, or experiencing partial homelessness, because that's a whole new thing where people are homeless 2 days a week, or they do have shelter because they're living in a car, but that's not really shelter.
That's not shelter.
Right. But in services that classifies as you have shelter,
yes, right? I know it's stupid. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
And that's all federal. Like that's not necessarily the state or the city doing that. That's a federal guideline. And so it's, you know, these kinds of things these are the things I worry about when I think of like long-term effects of COVID. I mean, there's a lot of other things too, like the income inequality that has been created by this like 1.5 years of gap where people may have lost, like a whole generation may have lost millions of dollars in income opportunity or income potential because they didn't get the raises or they didn't get promotions when they should have, or they got laid off. And of course, again, that disproportionately affects BIPOC individuals. It disproportionately affects LGBTQ people. You know, it's one of those unfortunate things. And I think these are the effects of COVID on young people we're going to feel for many years.
So it looks like it appears that Pride, half of Pride is off and running and great and so forth and so on with lots of support. And then there's the other half of Pride that shows the darker side of what's not being done to help people and to bring about equality. So it seems that hopefully next year, because I will contact you again next year at Pride Month, and maybe things will be better than they are right now. So
that would be fabulous.